This is Practically Culture, a podcast devoted to TV, movies, sometimes video games, and other pop culture. I'm your host, Logan Bow, podcasting from Lehigh, Utah, and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only Bob Caswell in the Bay Area. How are you, Bob?
Hello. I'm doing great. How's it going with you?
Just hanging out. You know me, and that was the most subtext I've ever heard in a great that I can remember.
Very pregnant posy, yeah. I'm doing great. I'll say it faster. No, that's worse almost. Oh, anyway, I'm glad that you're just hanging out and things are good. Nice.
All right. Well, anyway, welcome to our main show, everyone. This week we review mid-90s, and we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. If you like what you hear, look for us in your usual podcast app, practicallyculture.com, and on YouTube. We recommend you check it all out if you're into the show. It's TV, it's movies, it's sometimes video games. It's Practically Culture. Let's rock. Oh, man, it is good to be back, Bob. You do anything interesting for Halloween?
Just trick-or-treating with a 2-year-old, which is a little different than with a 1-year-old. So, we're doing stuff that we didn't have an excuse to do before, right? Because we're adults. But it was fun. He's kind of getting into it and figuring out what it means. Like, what? We get to walk up to houses now? Why do they all have lights? Oh, interesting. And why do I have this bucket of things that people give me things? And I'm like, yeah, just kind of rediscovering the whole process.
Did you dress up as a costume?
Yes, but it was a cheat a little bit because I had used it before. I don't need to admit
as a project manager at a tech company. What was your costume?
No, I was just a airline pilot. I have a jacket and a hat for that, and we were all matching because, we were all airline personnel.
Okay, all right, that's like a fine little family.
Yeah.
Costume scheme sounds good.
How about you?
I stayed home and received trick-or-treaters. I did end up making a new ice cream creation. I wonder actually what you'd think of this one.
Ooh, tell me.
Lemon meringue ice cream.
Oh, I love
a nice lemony ice cream, and I made some Italian meringue, so it's cooked, and I could just pipe it right in and made a little swirl. And I was actually pretty pleased. It was sort of like a concept, proof of concept sort of stab. I think I can tweak it to make it even better, but I was happy with the tanginess of the lemon and the sweetness and the softness of the meringue together. I was actually really pleased. I think it has potential.
Wow. You are speaking my language, Logan. I don't know if this is premature, but next time I visit, could we do that? Could I have some lemon meringue ice cream? I love the tardiness of lemon when it's done well as a flavor.
Sure.
So I'm all in on that. Everything you just described is like Bob approved, and I haven't even tried it yet.
Good. I know my last ice cream flavor was not number one on your list, but I'm pretty pleased with this one too.
Right.
Anyway, ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mid-90s. Stevie, a 13-year-old in 1990s era Los Angeles, spends his summer navigating between his troubled home life and a group of new friends he meets at a skate shop. Starring Sonny Soljic, Lucas Hedges, and Nikel Smith. Written and directed by Jonah Hill. First-time writer-director, I believe, for Jonah. What's your mini review, Bob?
All right, here goes mid-90s. Minimalist coming-of-age story about a cute kid growing up in LA in the 90s with skateboards and stuff. I found it all to be just fine with nice moments and little touches that likely make it nostalgic for someone else. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was good.
All right. Here's my mini review. Highly evocative of some real feelings and experiences about friends growing up. More effective at that than at telling a story. But I'm giving it 4 out of 5.
Oh, you're going to endorse it. It's Logan endorsed. Okay.
It's an interesting one. I mean, there's a lot I liked about it, but I'm not sure it was a great movie. Good, sure, but maybe missing something.
Yeah. I mean, and it was nice and short, which we like to give movies, a positive check mark for that, but not if it's short at the expense of missing things, which sounds like a paradox, but it doesn't have to be, people.
Yeah, but I mean, what's to like? I have a feeling it struck a chord with me on its high points more so than with you. So, but I'll explain some of the things that I really liked. There's 2 main things, or maybe it's 2 aspects of one thing, but for me, what I loved most and what gave me warm, fuzzy feelings was capturing something about having an escape with friends when your life isn't maybe going super well. Is in mid-90s here in this movie. It's basically about Stevie. He doesn't like his home life, and he starts spending, or before that, he notices a group of friends that seem like they they're an interesting group that he wants to be a part of. They're skateboarders, but he sort of tries to work his way in there and fit in and get some relief from his home life. And actually, without getting too detailed, I can relate a little bit to that. For me, it reminded me of hashtag Geek Alert, but when I got into like high level World of Warcraft raiding when I was a bigger part of my life, I could just focus on a part of myself and interacting in ways that were focused, and I could have friends in a certain context, and I could earn respect in that context and have a good time separate from my real life, which wasn't going so well at the time.
Right.
And it was really meaningful to me, and it was really meaningful to Stevie in the movie. And I saw that happening to him, and it reminded me of me, and I thought that was just a really good way that it captured that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fascinating connection. I wouldn't have guessed that without you having explained it, and it makes a lot of sense. I think for me, it just didn't quite resonate in the same way. I was looking at it more from the coming of age angle, and comparing it to my own life coming of age, I guess, and other coming of age movies, and just that whole trope. And it all seemed fine and like a realistic portrayal of how those things go. Was he 12, 13? He was pretty little looking.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to some interviews with Jonah Hill, and I think he's supposed to be 12. I think it was actually 12. But yeah, he was really small and young, and like on the other side, the before side of puberty. That's for sure.
Right, which maybe we'll get to it, which is interesting because he also has some of his first sexual experiences and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to say, well, I'm glad that all worked for you, and I can totally see how, it did really show him coming out of his shell a bit and being more who he wanted to be, because he was in this, what he thought of as a safe space with this new group of friends.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about it as a coming of age story, and I hadn't thought of it that way. And I guess in some ways it is, but I feel like he's coming of I don't know, whatever happens before. He was into the phase where then when you're in that age or phase, then you can come of age. It was like a pre-age. I don't know, because he was small and young, and I don't know how many like groups of friends you've had. I can't even think of specifics. But another thing that felt familiar was when you just see like this hierarchy, this totem pole, and you're trying to get on the totem pole, but the person who's on the bottom, he kind of wants to welcome you in as long as you're lower than him.
Yes.
But you decide to go a little higher than in the name, then he gets pissed at you because everyone's jockeying for position here.
And it's all unwritten. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's there. I felt those feelings. I have a hard time remembering exactly, but I thought it was interesting at that too.
Yeah, really good point. They played off of that really well, because then that person on the bottom of the totem pole, when he sees Sonny, or what's his name in the movie?
Stevie in the movie.
Stevie. When he sees Stevie, like actually, elevating himself almost accidentally and getting to be a little more popular in the group, that creates some interesting dynamics. So all of this stuff, like, really good, low stakes, but not in the context of what's being shown. Maybe sometimes I feel like I overuse that phrase. I don't think it was a problem in this movie.
Some of the stakes get higher. I mean, they're not like the end of the world, like a superhero movie, but real consequences to some of the things that go on in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it felt rooted in the specifics of what it was trying to highlight. But then I was also like, I was actually pretty curious about the world outside of just Stevie's perspective, but we didn't really get much of that.
Yeah, to me, if we start going into the section of things that I wish we had more of, it is more of the larger world, because we got the impression that he didn't like his home life, but I didn't quite get enough of that. I mean, his brother obviously is much older and is really angry and seems
kind of a bully.
Kind of a bully, and like more. I mean, I guess I don't know. It seems like there's some brother teasing or even bullying or something that is like in the range of normal, even if not great. And this did seem to go past that, I think.
Yeah.
Not that I know how those lines are quite drawn, but it was sort of an intense Big Brother experience. But I wasn't quite sure why the older brother was so angry all the time. I mean, he had an impeccably, maintained bedroom, I guess. Must have had a part-time job to get all that stuff that was in his room.
Yeah.
And his mom, was she a good mom? Was she a bad mom? I couldn't tell. She was like not there all the time, and she wasn't perfect, but she didn't seem terrible. And we heard, and in the past, she used to have more men over, but that didn't seem to be a huge thing now. So I couldn't tell if she was a good mom or a bad mom, or why he was so pissed at her.
Yeah, and then there's like hints of money problems, but not really, because
there's a big point when someone else is, oh, that's the real poor guy. He's not. I mean, you may think you're poor, but he's the real poor one. So I don't know what we're supposed to think about Stevie's family life if it's super poor.
Yeah, but it's definitely a single mom raising two boys, and the mom is pretty young. I mean, the difference between who is it, Lucas Hedges and is it Catherine Watterson? The mom, like I bet in real life, I haven't looked it up, but she would have to have given birth to him when he was like 12 or when she was 12 or something. But anyway,
in the movie though, even there's like this line at the beginning, like at her 18th birthday, she was pregnant with him or already had him as a baby or something like that. So
yeah, okay, so they kind of addressed it. So she's probably struggling in some way, and she puts on a happy face most of the time until she finds out what Stevie's been up to.
But she seemed appropriately like, wait a second, who are these friends? And you're doing what? I don't approve of those friends. But it seemed like what a good mom should do.
Yeah, I want to say they almost tried to show her as like an overshare, like she's trying to have a conversation with her kids about grown-up stuff when they're out at dinner or something, and then it's falling flat and they don't want to talk to her and their kids. She does seem like maybe a little lonely and struggling in her own way, but really just we didn't get enough of it. But she did seem like a good mom in the end, although I just wanted to know more and thought it was pretty underdeveloped.
Yeah, and so the other thing for me is I didn't understand what, I mean, it was about the themes of the movie, I guess you might say, are about the things that I liked about escaping with your friends and your home life isn't good, or it did have a theme of low man on the totem pole, rising status. At least I thought those were interesting themes. But I don't know what the story was about in terms of anyone growing or changing or discovering something or any sort of movement, unless it was that his mom didn't hate his friends as much at the end, even though you'd think she would have had even more reason to hate his friends.
Yeah, that was
like they didn't address that.
Right. And where it ended was not very far from where it started in a way. Like nothing was resolved, I want to say. The only thing you get to see in the movie is he meets friends, he becomes friends and better known among those friends, and then he stays with those friends, and it's like the end. Like, oh, okay.
And they're friends.
And those friends themselves, how they came together, because it's pretty kind of an eclectic group. Like I don't know why they're different ages, and they're all interested in skateboarding in some way, but only sort of. Like two of them are supposedly better than the others, and one is going to go pro or something maybe. And there's these like side stories that are really short snippets that are really fast about their little lives. And it seemed all charming in the moment, but it just didn't feel like it added up to anything.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which I wished for more on too, I'm sort of intrigued by it and sort of thought it was provocative, but you were hinting at when they go to a party with girls, and a girl who's definitely on the, more grown-up side of puberty ends up having a sexual experience with him who's on the, the kid, like almost pedophile divide. I don't know if pedophile is fair or not, but it was like stark, like, oh, she's a fully developed woman, even if she's probably 16 or 17 or something like that. And he's like a little kid. He looks like a little kid.
Yeah. It was awkward and uncomfortable, that's for sure.
But I don't know if it was... I don't know what the movie was trying to say about it, but I felt like I needed the movie to say a little bit about that, because it was like, holy shit. And if the ages of the boy and girl had been reversed, it'd been like, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. And that's probably the biggest one of those examples. But then there's a bunch of other stuff, like he starts smoking, and just that becomes part of his life, and he starts drinking, and dude, he's like a 12-year-old kid, and he's not good at controlling himself. Like, and the movie it just sort of lays it out as like, in the mid-90s growing up. I'm like, well, I guess this is one version of that. I can't dispute that this isn't theoretically somebody's experience, or not theoretically, but it doesn't really wrestle with those things. Maybe in the very end it does a little bit, but just like across the room, like not enough for me. Like I wanted more coming of ageness or something. Maybe that's speaking to your point that it's not as much a coming of age movie as I'm giving it credit for, because there weren't really consequences, or he didn't for having a sexual experience, for becoming a smoker, a drinker, for being with these friends. It kind of ends pretty rosy, and it makes you walk away with like the movie's trying to give you this impression, like, kids on their own, they're fine. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that after watching this.
No. They do not seem fine, even though everyone seems happy with it. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. There were some things that were just presented in their stark reality, I guess, that I would like more, if not commentary on, at least more exploration of the consequences, wrestling with it, like you say.
Right.
Though I did really enjoy a few of the themes, the ones I've mentioned about an escape and about the hierarchy of kids on the playground. I found those really, really cool, but it just wasn't quite there, even though I liked things I liked enough that I'm putting it in the recommended category.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm just slightly under you on, I think we largely agree, but it just didn't do it for me on those other things. I wonder how you feel this is going to line up in terms of Oscar worthiness or top 10 lists and stuff. For me, not likely to make it into either category, but I guess we'll see. I don't control the Oscars. I only control my own top 10 list.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's going to make the Oscars. Although, I mean, but the Oscars nominations in our top 10 lists aren't necessarily mirror images of each other.
Right.
For me, I think it's one of the 10 best movies I've seen this year, but, November and December usually fills that in. So it could easily get bumped out
right
off the list. But I liked it, but left me slightly dissatisfied.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, so for mini reviews this week, Bob, we're going to have to do some shoehorning in of things that aren't our usual fare for mini reviews, but
okay,
we need to punch something in there. The first one that I'm going to do is I did actually finish the first 2-part season of Outlander, and it's a little old, but I'm excited to get back into it or get caught up, because actually as a preview for the weekend pick section, the new season of Outlander is dropping this week. But it's an interesting show. We haven't really talked about Outlander too much, but it's about a woman who lives in the 40s, and she's like mysteriously, magically sent back in time to Scotland, and she falls in love with a man there, but she's like married in the present, and she has to wrestle with that. And I think at heart it's like a woman's fantasy bodice ripper sort of novel, because all the men are super sexy, the Scottish, old hundreds of years ago men. And she's like trapped. She doesn't really have the choice to go back to her husband, so she's like forced to make her way with new sexy men in the past. And I think it's, in certain ways, it's like that fantasy for women. But I like it too.
Wow. So when did it start? Where did you discover it? What network? I feel like I'm in a black hole on this one or something like that.
Okay. So it's on Stars.
Okay.
I think the new season is going to start is the 4th or 5th. It's been like distant on my radar, but from hearing people describe it, basically how I described it, it was like intriguing, but I never really got into it. I never really started watching it until recently. But people, professional critics, other people have seemed to like it. I think it's in a similar category as Vikings, which means like old-time Scottish stuff, the way I like Vikings. That'll be your hook to get in. And then when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is actually better than it has to be. So keep watching it.
Nice. All right. Cool.
Anyway, so that's quasi-mini-review that if you like Outlander, you've already seen season 1. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking of as I start this. But I also thought, we thought as we talked about it, might be interesting to talk about what's the one? Assassin's Creed Odyssey, since you've played it a lot. I've played it a little.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. I've played it 30 to 40 hours now, closer to 40 hours actually. And I keep saying each time we bring it up, I really enjoy it, and I thought we would maybe joint review it, and we'll see if you're going to put in the time, because that's the biggest complaint here. Is it is a huge time commitment. and I'm still nowhere near the end. I'm like a little past the midpoint in a way, based on where I am in the story. But the combat mechanics, especially, like, I just love taking over forts and just, there's ship sailing and ship wars. Kind of since Black Flag, it's the first one that's really incorporated that into the story more directly. So it's kind of the greatest hits of Assassin's Creed gameplay, and then there's kind of story that's sort of shoehorned in to make that relevant in it's ancient Greece, and it feels like it all fits and it works and it's nice. It's just I'm getting to the point where, like, if it would just wrap up, I'd really, really love it. But now that I know that I have 20 more hours left, I'm like, I feel like I've seen what it is. Like, I don't know that there's surprises that are going to bring me back in on a new level. So for what it's worth, it's kind of a pending review from my point of view, but I still highly recommend it. But I'll reserve judgment until I finish it. But I wish it was a little shorter. I guess, what am I trying to dance around that issue? I don't know.
Interesting, because and you and I have talked a little bit, but just to get out there, and you can respond if you want. But I'm having a hard time really getting into it. I'm probably about 4 hours in, and I don't despise the gameplay. I don't hate the characters; they're fine. But for me, so far, it's like, well, what's the point of this? I just seem to have a friend who gets in trouble, and I have to help him. Why do I care about this? I don't quite get it. And I don't know if I'm a huge fan. I don't mean to say that in the euphemistic way of, I hate it. I've played one Assassin's Creed game, and that was Black Flag, and I really liked the pirate ship parts, and it was just sort of meh on the other parts. And this is most of the other parts, even maybe it's slightly better than Black Flag. But
yeah,
Assassin's Creed gameplay has not been something that's kept me coming back to Assassin's Creed through the years. And so it's fine, but the gameplay itself isn't necessarily keeping me into it.
Gotcha. Yeah, you haven't gotten, I don't think, because the pirate ship stuff or the ship battle stuff doesn't come until you're done with that first 5-10 hours or whatever, which is kind of just speaks to how long this game is. But yeah, it's a pretty big part, and you can do it as much as you want. You can make it even a bigger part. So I think you'll really appreciate and enjoy that part of it. But I don't think it'll be enough to make up for the things that you're talking about. I will say it's called Odyssey on purpose. That's another thing, is that it's very much centered around this one character's odyssey, like her or his story and where they came from, where they fit into the larger mystery of ancient Greece, which is kind of fun to see. Socrates and some other people that show up in the story, but it's cutesy. Like, I guess I'm feeling ready for a story that's like that's not 90% just one character and the immediate world that is her world, and then the rest of the stuff is just sort of fits in around that. So that's another thing, is it's very much a singular story. But I feel like I'm being pretty down. I still want to say I really enjoy it. The storytelling's done well. I love the dialogue options, and also I guess I keep saying it, the gameplay is top notch. And it's very therapeutic just to sit down at night, and I'm feeling like I'm pretty good at it. Like, I'm like, if you've done Assassin's Creed before, you'll definitely really like this one.
All right. Well, I'll keep plugging away at least to that 10-hour hurdle, the famed credit screen.
Okay.
All right. So that's something like mini reviews.
Yeah, it's a mini review preview or something. I don't know.
Anyway, let's get to some weekend picks. For TV, I've got a couple here. Friday on Netflix, House of Cards Season 6 drops. The final season delayed because of Kevin Spacey having to be written out and stuff like that. Have you stuck with House of Cards? I think I gave up a season or two ago.
So I don't know what I'm doing. I want to be part of the conversation, obviously, because it's like the original Netflix original. So here's where I'm at. I'm halfway through the season that is the current season, which is a weird place to be, because it's like, well, Jesus, you came this far. Like, why did you put her out like with 4 episodes to go out of like 50? And it had nothing to do with the Kevin Spacey scandal. It just got boring comparative to a lot of other stuff going on. But now it's exciting again because of the scandal in a way, or because of the way that they have to kill him off screen. I mean, spoiler alert, but that's what they're doing. And so I want to just, it's a cultural moment. Like, I can't not see this, right? I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, well, that's the only draw I have to it, because this has been like my archetypal example of one that just feels exactly the same, very monotonous tonally. I just need some tonal dynamics. That's my coined phrase.
Yeah, and it really lays it on thick in season 5. I mean, it's like, like very exactly the thing you don't like, especially. Get the most of it in this last season.
Oh, wow. That makes it harder for me to jump back in. But maybe we'll see. Anyway, I thought I'd mention it for those who want to just be in on the cultural conversation and those who are maybe still into it and watching. So now you know.
Now you know. All right.
The other Sunday on Stars, the new season of Outlander, which I mentioned, and just from the promotional material, it seems like the two main characters have gone from old Scotland and now they're migrating to the new world. That's just what I see on the posters. I don't really know because I've tried to avoid too much detail. But
okay.
Anyway, Outlander's back. If you watch Outlander, make sure you're watching it this week. That's TV, Bob. Let's talk movies.
All right. Let me pull up our movies for this week. We got some fun stuff to talk about. First up is Bohemian Rhapsody. So this, of course, is the story of Freddie Mercury, and it's directed by Bryan Singer and starring Rami Malek. Is that how you say his name? Something like that.
Sounds good to me.
Of course, we're going to see this, Logan. It's. I love Queen, and this is trying to be a tribute / biography of some kind. There's all sorts of buzz already, and I could get into it, but I think it's still just something we need to see and talk about. How do you feel?
I agree. I mean, it looks like from the preview, just seeing Rami Malek play Freddie Mercury, that's just going to be worth it, whether or not it's a good movie. It looks like I just want to not miss that.
Yeah, and he's probably definitely going to get, what does that mean? He's going to get nominated for an Oscar, I'm guessing. Although the early buzz is that the movie itself is not the best movie, but that, like you just said, there's reason enough to see it for those reasons. And part of the issue, I guess, is it's maybe not, it takes liberties with the real story in ways that are, depending on how you feel, you might like or not like, or how much of a fan you are. I don't know. But I'm very intrigued, and I think we're definitely going to want to check it out.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that they take liberties. I mean, Freddie Mercury is like the frontmaniest frontman.
Yeah, like what liberties do you need to take? I'm sure his story, whatever it is just fine for a movie.
Anyway, okay, so that's definitely a contender. What else are we working with?
Then there's the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And this is the latest Disney wide release. And it's a Nutcracker. It's one of these. Nutcracker is a very Christmassy themed story, and this is a PG, family-friendly affair with lots of costumes and castles and people dressed up in uniforms and stuff like that. It looks like, from a production perspective, and we've got Keira Knightley as the Sugar Plum Fairy. I should say that.
Okay.
It seems, and Helen Mirren, Morgan Freeman, Matthew McFadden, lots of good people in this. It seems very appropriate for the season that is Christmas, where it's a little early here, but I don't know. It seems fine, but it also seems like I don't know that it's essential or necessary.
Did you ever grow up watching ballet performances of the Nutcracker in the Christmas season?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I even to this day, we go to the Nutcracker every couple of years. I think we went last year, actually. So From that perspective, it's a familiar story. And so my household may be the reason I partake. We'll see.
Partake. All right.
It has been, well, there's not much of a scandal for the movie itself, but it was made well before Morgan Freeman got Me Too'd. And so now Disney's having, because he's kind of a big part of the story, I guess, Disney's having a hard time figuring out how to do the marketing. So I always find that interesting, but shouldn't impact the movie much. We'll see.
All right. All right.
Next up, we have got Boy Erased. Now, Lucas Hedges is on a tear, man. He's like in every other movie that we could potentially see, and not one, but like 2 I'm a Gay Boy movies for him in the same year or something. Or no, sorry. I found I that's what it felt like. What I mean to say, the common thread that really is happening is that he's in 2 movies as a son of parents who don't approve of what he's doing. One of them is this one, which is the gay storyline. The other one is with Julia Roberts, that's coming out around the same time, but that's more like drug dealer. Nothing related to each other. It's just that I keep confusing them, people, because he's like playing. And then we just saw this movie, mid-90s. I'm just saying Lucas Hedges is playing some version of a troubled teen in like every other movie that I see a preview for, and I'm starting to confuse them. That's the takeaway here.
Got it. Nice save.
Thank you. But this one is supposed to have some warm fuzzies. He's the son of a Baptist pastor, and so it's all about, you know, praying the gay away and all these things that are a real thing and real struggles for gay teens and that sort of thing. Written and directed by Joel Edgerton. Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe play the parents. That alone is reason enough to see this movie, Logan. And I like Joel Edgerton more than you do. But
I don't dislike him, but I don't consider myself a fan. And I was just trying to think, has he done a lot of directing? This isn't like his Jonah Hill / Bradley Cooper jump into directing as a main actor, right? He's done it before.
Yeah, he's done some before, but he's mostly an actor. He directed The Gift back in 2015.
Yes, I think I saw it.
Yeah, and so I feel like I'm going to see this eventually, but it is very heavy looking, which again, you know, shoot me if that's a problem for me to say, but sometimes when you have to like be like, take a deep breath, you're going to go into a heavy movie with heavy themes. This is one of those. It seems very like no comic relief involved.
Well, yeah, it does seem very serious.
Serious.
# serious.
How do you feel about it? What do you think?
The creative team, the actors and well, I guess most of the actors sort of draw me in. I guess I don't know. I wonder if it's a good version of this. I guess maybe we'll catch some reviews or something like that, then I could definitely go for it. If not, then I could leave it.
Okay. The only other movie to mention is a Tyler Perry comedy. I've mentioned it. So those are the weekend picks.
You're not even going to say the name?
Nobody's fool. It's just Tyler Perry. It's just whatever. It's just Tiffany Haddish, though. She's in everything too. So, you know, if you can't get enough of her, she's been in a ton of movies. I think, Logan, that the clear winner this week is Bohemian Rhapsody. We can't not see this and have something to say about it. I've actually already bought my tickets, if I'm completely honest with you.
I wish you would have said that before, Bob. I feel like that taints your decision.
I know. Well, I just wanted to come across as authentic. I don't want to be disingenuous, but I have bought tickets.
No problem. All right. Well, it's TV, it's movies, it's Practically Culture. There's some picks for you. Go forth and to watch. And that is this week's episode of Practically Culture. Join us next week as we review Bohemian Rhapsody. And we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. You can find more from us at practicallyculture.com and in your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bo. Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message, ask us a question, let us know you like the show. Get out there and watch some TV and movies, people. Play some video games. It's good for you. Thanks for rocking with us.
Have a good one.
I'm disappointed that the reviews for Bohemian Rhapsody seem to be mixed to mediocre.
Yeah, I was hoping for a little more, too. I thought it was going to be a stronger movie. Well, and I didn't get into it, but Bryan Singer also has a bit of a Me Too thing. Not that that matters, but more to the point, Bryan Singer also has a mixed track record as a director. I liked him with the X-Men stuff. And